Yes, so today I have a couple of items to share with you. First off, how to add new dialogues to existing templates in QLM, followed by how to populate a folder with tagged objects in QLM. So first item, to preface my presentation, the tooltips that I'll be walking you through today will be executed in QLM alone. However, the changes that they enable will be accessible from the web once you've done the publishing segment of the work. So the first item I'll be presenting is how to add a custom tab and custom fields into an out-of-the-box template. So any of the templates you see here on this list are applicable. This is very useful if you have a template that's slightly adjacent to your needs and maybe could be made to suit your needs 100% with a couple of additions. It's also useful if you're looking to avoid any case maker work, which some of us might know is the QualiWare customization component, allowing you to make changes to the meta model. For what would be a minor change, it should be also noted that this tool that I'm about to show you is for adding new dialogues, not editing existing ones. That's still case maker territory. So you can add a tab to any template using this approach. And what do I mean by tabs? So if I go into an active, for example, any item in QualiWare, and I go to its properties, these are tabs, or otherwise known as dialogues. So you can add a tab to any template using this approach. But for the purpose of this demo, I'm going to be using a quality audit template and adding in 3 fields into a new tab. So I have a quality audit here. These are the standard tabs that come with it. And I'm going to be adding 3 fields, an additional date field, a description, which is a multi-line field, and a single link type field to the object in a new tab. So for background, this is a function that we at CloseReach have used to enable some of our auditing capabilities, as well as creating a management review function in an existing template. So the tool is called Add Dialog, and it's an out-of-the-box function, which is accessible from the Tools menu. So if I reset my buttons and option menus here by clicking on the Repository tab, and then I go to Tools, Customize, Add Dialog, we're met with a little window here that customizes the tab that we're creating. So the functions on this page, new dialog name, what we're going to call our tab, and we call it, let's say, new tab. And subdialog 4, this is where you identify the templates that you want the tab to appear on. In our case, it's quality audit. Then we have dialog size. So this is where you specify the size of the dialog. We're going to be leaving this. We're going to be leaving this alone because for our purposes, we have enough space to include the fields that we want. And of course, the dialog fields area where you can add or remove attributes, custom attributes no less. So once the dialog info is entered, which we just did, we can click Add to customize the fields on the dialog, and this opens this window. And the functions here are field name. So this is the attribute name itself. It's not how it's going to appear on the dialog. An example to put things into context would be has responsible is the attribute that's always displayed as responsible in a dialog or on the web. So I'm going to call it new date. And the field type, we're going to pick date. The initial value is a value that would be displayed there by default, and that you could then change. If you leave it blank, then it's gonna be blank. So for example, 2022, February 02, special day. The allowed value, we'll come back to it in another attribute that we will add. And the field coordinates here help place this attribute in your dialog wherever you want it. We're going to leave it untouched for now. And the prompt, this is how the name of the field will be displayed on the object. So let's call it new date. To go back to the previous example, this is the responsible title for the has responsible attribute. All right, now let's add another one. This time we will add a description field, so a new description. Whoops, butterfingers today. Field type. This one will be a multi-line because this is the rich text editing field in which you can open a full screen view, just like a Word document, and work with it and include objects and so forth. Initial value will leave blank. Same with allowed value. We're going to come back to this on the last field, and the rest is self-explanatory according to what I've told you. So the prompt, new description. Okay. And then we're going to add one last attribute. This one is going to be a single line attribute. So we'll call it new persons. The field type is going to be single line as discussed. Oops, sorry, single link. The initial value will leave blank, and the allowed value. So here's where you can set up what types of templates can be displayed in this field. So if you have a single link or a multi-link field, you can sort of narrow the amount of templates you want to show. In this case, we want to show persons. So we'll go with the person template. And new person. Okay. And from this point, we can test and see what our new tab would look like. You can see here that there's no sort of overlapping or missing text to like not enough space to include a full name and stuff like that. So we're good for all intents and purposes. I'm going to press save and OK. And I'm going to exit out of our quality audit object and just, whoops, go back into it and see here we have our new tab with our new date and new description and a new person. So I'm just going to fill myself in there. All right, so if you wish to edit any of those fields after they're created, this can be done from QualiWare setup object. So the QualiWare setup object is generated by the Add Dialog tool when you make any change, and this is what defines and tells the software that, hey, there's a new tab in here, and what goes in that tab. So you can see here that we have two meta add dialogues. If I would want to change anything about this, I could go in here and play with the code directly. So let's say I want the new date attribute to, or sorry, I want the space, or maybe I want, okay, let's see. Yeah, maybe I want new date to be a little bit taller for whatever reason. So I would go in and change the dy from 25 to 45. Apply, run, and then once I close out of this and go back into it, then we can see that it's actually taller than before, but since none of the other attributes have been modified, this is sort of overlapping. But just to illustrate my example. So that was my first tip of the day. And and these, side note, these dialogues, you can use them on the web as you like, just like you can with any out-of-the-box dialogues and attributes, provided you, as I mentioned, that you do the publishing work, that you go into the HTML dialogues and you add those new fields in, you add those new tabs in. And yeah, so the second tip I have for you guys today is about adding tagged objects to folders in QLM. So this is very useful if you want to maybe simply view which objects have that tag and you want to view them in a convenient location. You could use a folder, or maybe you have a large number of tagged items and you need to do something to your repository, or you need to move this content over to another repository. So you want to export them. A convenient way to do so, and this is a good kind of tooltip within itself, is to put those objects in a folder and export them and import them into another repository. That way, once you import, you have the visibility, that level of visibility on which items came in and potentially overrode some of the existing items that you have. All right, so as some of you may know, inside repository folders in QLM, you do have that option to populate a folder with items of a certain tag. So if I go into a folders and I go to the properties of a folder and I go to the advanced tab, there's an option here, include objects with these tags. So I've already added hashtag QUG here, but as we can see, there's actually nothing that's showing up inside the folder. So at first glance, this looks kind of bugged out, and some of you have actually filed bug reports as a result of this. But actually, this feature only works. So you specify in the folder what tags you want it to be populated with, and then you hop on over to the web. And if I open the repository explorer here, whoops, it's reloading. So if I open the repository explorer on the web here and go to the tagged objects, you can see a couple of objects here that I've included the QUG tag into. But that's not, that sort of demonstrates what this feature does, but that's not what this tooltip is about. There's more. So what about QLM? What about being able to export an entire folder? Well, I've come up with a way around that with the help of Bob Boisvert and Sam Boisvert, actually. And it has to do with, so what I'm about to show you will allow you to add objects of a certain tag to a folder through a QCL command. So I'm going to go to command language, so tools, command language, and then go into command multi-line here. And I've already pasted in my code from beforehand. So, and in fact, I can paste this code into the chat if any of you would like to take notes. There we go. So the first command is, we get the repository folder. And we get that through the object ID. So we define it as repository folder as a local variable, and we get an object ID for it. And so I'm gonna, whoops. Okay, so I'm gonna go into the properties here, go to audits, find the object ID, and then open my command again, paste that object ID in there. And the second part is, what hashtag do you want it to look up? So I want to look up QUG. Oops. And this part of the command will also tell you exactly what is being moved to the folder that you've specified using the object ID. And then the last part is the act of moving those folders. So once I press OK, this tagged objects folder should now become populated with the same content that was on the web. So there you go. So now you're able to view those tagged objects in the folder of your choice. Keep in mind you do need to use the script again when you have additional objects, but that's just the nature of entering commands. Yes, you do have to run that periodically. Yeah. Any other questions?
Thank you, Dragos.